Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for May 24th, 2024. Today I'm going to be discussing the question of the danger of nuclear war. Now, I know many of you dismiss this and say it's just scare tactics, but let's face the facts. As of May 21st, the Russians are engaging in tactical nuclear military exercises. These are close to the Ukraine border. The Russians, through TASS, said they're doing it because of the threats stated by Macron to put NATO boots on the ground and the warnings from people like British Foreign Minister Lord Cameron that they have now lifted the ban on Ukraine using long-range missiles to strike inside Russia. And Blinken, coming back from a meeting with Zelensky, confirming that the U.S. is also thinking of lifting the ban. Now, I wrote an article today which went through this whole question of who's behind the drive for nuclear war and why they're doing it. And the issue is very simple. The empire is crashing, it's losing, it's being rejected. The fact that they still have weapons and can slaughter Palestinians, that they can keep a war going to weaken Russia, that they're preparing to go to war with China, all that's true. But that doesn't mean they can win those wars or that they're going to survive. As the war in Ukraine is increasingly recognized as a losing proposition, they're escalating. And that's not surprising because they can't afford to lose these wars. Now, if you look at the mouthpieces for the empire, you see a discussion constantly about war, escalation. You must stop Putin. Putin is going all over the world. He's going to take over everything. Now, this is coming from people like Cameron, from Blinken, from Macron, from Victoria Nuland, who rose from her crypt to say that we have to allow Ukraine to use U.S. weapons to strike Russia. Speaker Johnson, a mouthpiece for the military, industrial, financial complex. Johnson said, if we don't stop Putin, he's going to take over the world. The Atlantic Council, similar line from them, saying that Putin's bluffing, you've got to call his bluff and stop him. Keir Giles from Chatham House, who basically said that the Putin policy is to bluff and we have to call his bluff. All of these lines are coming in a coordinated fashion because the European economies are crashing, the political parties are unpopular. You have a Biden versus Trump election in the United States where neither candidate has a solution. Trump at one point seemed to be anti-war, but he allowed Johnson to put through the $95 billion war package. That could have been fought, and it should have been fought. But the point is the days of the empire are numbered. And our job is to make sure that the empire crumbles away peacefully and is replaced by a new security and development architecture. That's what Lyndon LaRouche fought for the 5 decades of his main public political activism. That's what I've been involved in for 5 decades. That's what Helga Zepp-LaRouche has been fighting for. And that's what is needed for every single person on the planet. So those of you who are watching these videos, share them, mobilize your friends, help us build the constituency that will force the corrupt politicians to turn away from the globalists and their greedy seeking of more and more private interest. Help us to defeat them and restore our republic in the United States and restore sovereignty to countries in Europe, such as Germany, which have given up their sovereignty to the European Union. Now, I have 3 questions I'm going to take up. One is from Thomas, who asks about eugenics, the idea of racial superiority. Isn't this behind the war party in the West? Well, it's true. There is a belief in eugenics. People like King Charles, like Klaus Schwab, the people who promote the idea of survival of the fittest, that some people are genetically superior. This happened long before Hitler. It goes back to Thomas Hobbes, the British philosopher who said that the battle on earth is a war of each against all. Basically what Darwin later talked about as survival of the fittest. This is Malthus who said that there's never going to be enough food production to keep up with growing population, so you have to reduce the population. It's the Malthusian idea which is behind so-called environmentalism. If you can't convince people to stop procreating by threatening them, then you have to do it by other means, including war, including biological holocausts, which can be unleashed. And so you have an oligarchy which believes it is genetically superior and therefore should be ruling, and promotes various forms of depopulation, whether it's International Monetary Fund austerity or war. The intent is the same: reduce the population. And empires are concerned with what? Two things: making sure that the golden billion, the people on the top, are protected, and secondly, that there are enough subservient slaves to work to produce the goods that the golden billion consume, which means keep them stupid, keep them in entertainment and drugs and sports, focused on celebrity. Meanwhile, you can rob them blind and they won't even know. And if they do find out, they'll say there's nothing they can do about it. So that's, in a sense, the secret of empire, is this belief in the superiority of the people who benefit from it and the submission of the rest of the population either to pessimism or seeking some other form of identity. And that's what identity politics is all about. You look for something to attach yourself to so you don't have to face the fact that you're nothing more than an ignorant, subservient slave. Well, people are not subservient slaves. They're born with creative potential, and we have to inspire that. So to win this fight against the globalist cartels who use eugenics as a part of their armory, to defeat them, we've got to inspire people to recognize the basic human quality of creativity is what provides for prosperity. And governments have to be instruments of a popular will for the improvement of all, as opposed to the idea that government should serve the wealthy and the powerful. Now, secondly, there's a question, a longer question, and how can we reach evangelical Christians? And the implication of the question was, if someone's a Christian, how could they justify the slaughter that's going on in Gaza right now? Well, there is blind support for Israel, and it's based on two things. One is the successful brainwashing of the population after World War II to say that what the Holocaust means is that whatever the Jewish people need to survive is justified. The problem is the idea of serving or of protecting the Jewish people was to set up a state in a land where the Jewish people were in a minority. The argument that it was a land without people for a people without land was a fraud. There were 10 times more Palestinian Muslims and Christians living in Palestine than there were Jews when the British promised the creation of a Jewish state. So the whole idea of Zionism from the Jewish standpoint was based on, after the Holocaust, where can we feel safe and protected? Now, more importantly, from the top, the control of the cult of Zionism, that the land is sacred and belongs to a certain people, that comes from so-called Christian Zionists, including the oligarchy, the British establishment top level, which believed itself to be the true inheritors of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so they created a country which could serve as an instrument for the empire in Southwest Asia. And that's what Israel is. Israel became a successful state because there was money from the diaspora and money to build a country. But the problem is that it serves the narrowest interests, not even of the Jewish people, but of the globalists and the geopoliticians who can use Israel as a weapon against other nations in the region. And that has made Israel rich, it's made it strong, but it's also put into it the fiber of its being a belief that Israel has the right to do whatever it feels is necessary to defend itself, including slaughtering innocent children and women. And so the question that has to be posed to Christian evangelicals is where in Jesus' teachings does it say that people who are poor and oppressed should be victims of an occupation? The very idea of occupation, having one people rule over another, is unchristian. And this is why the Peace of Westphalia was so successful at guaranteeing a peace for Europe for so long. The idea that you have to be concerned with the benefit of the other. That's what the Oasis Plan that LaRouche developed would do. That would say that for security for Israel, you need ample supplies of water for everyone in the region. And you can get it. It's possible to do that with the desalination program that LaRouche identified, and with the funds for it, the technology for it, it's feasible. And that's the basis for overcoming the hatred that was implanted from the beginning by the British intentionally as a way of sustaining that land area for British operations, the oil supplies, and so on. So the Christian evangelicals have a choice. Act in the tradition of the beliefs of Jesus Christ, or instead of the barbarians. The barbarians who say, we're powerful, God gave us this land, and we're going to do what we have to do to protect it. Well, God gave something more than the land. God provided human reason and intellect and creativity that should enable us to figure out how to live in peace. And the idea of supporting one people for religious reasons over another is a very violation of the tradition that is the Christian tradition. So I think you just have to argue with people about this. Finally, the question came up, if Israel is increasingly isolated, doesn't that make it more likely to use nuclear weapons? Well, Israel is totally isolated. Outside of the United States, there are very few nations that are supporting them right now. The question is, can the U.S. use its influence to stop Israel from carrying out not only a destruction of the Palestinian people, an ethnic cleansing against Palestine, but to move away from an occupation and accept the idea of a Palestinian state? Most of the world voted for that at the United Nations. 143 nations voted for a Palestinian state. Only 12 voted against. One was the United States. Change the policy of the United States. You want to make sure Israel doesn't use nuclear weapons and doesn't carry out genocidal policy to protect the occupation? Then change the policy of the United States. We have an election coming up. Every single congressional candidate who has to appear at a campaign event has to be challenged. Are you for the genocide in Palestine or not? Are you for the continuation of the war against Russia or not? And I think if we have enough people out doing what my friends like Jose Vega has been doing, we can convince enough of the congressmen to shift the direction away from war toward peace. So that's my report for today. Be sure to share this video, sign up for our free offer to the Executive Intelligence Review Daily Alert, and I'll see you again on Monday.